Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are. Well, I say good morning because where I am, it is morning and a pleasant Saturday morning, pleasant Saturday afternoon, evening to everyone. Welcome to Talk Sports. It's another of a Saturday sports program. And as indicated, we have the esteemed officials from the Grenada Secondary Schools Games Association, and we'll be talking Intercol, that's the Republic Bank Intercol 2024. Well, we so grew up with it being called the Scotia Bank, and now it's the Republic Bank. But nevertheless, we'll hear all about the intricacies of the Intercol and the whole anticipation surrounding Intercol 2024. By the way, the folks I'm speaking to today, I'm taking them away from an important activity today because obviously they want to go to support their student athletes as they compete in the National Athletics Championships at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium. Speaking about Kirani James, I had a nice, as usual, once I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, I must reach out to my homeboy, so we had a good time last night. We were out for the night, enjoying the downtown of Phoenix, right? Yeah. So thank you once again for joining us. And as indicated, I have with me Mrs. Dianne Abel-Jeffrey, who is the chairperson of the Grenada Secondary Schools Games Association. By the way, there are so many names in this thing there, so we'll get some clarity because they're the principals as well, And I also have Mrs. Samantha Antoine. She will be bringing to us useful information. The Samantha Antoine-Purcell, she is an executive member as well. So certainly she carries some level of authority in terms of speaking. I don't know about Carl. Carl should have been joining us, but obviously Carl is probably at the stadium already. And also my co-host in Toronto, Rudian Sylvan, who will be joining us from Toronto to speak to the officials. So let me use the opportunity to a warm welcome to everyone who has joined us. Good afternoon to you folks.
Good morning to you. I believe it's morning for you.
Yes,
So good
thank you.
morning
It
to
is
you.
morning.
Yes,
Yes.
and good afternoon to everyone, the viewing audience. So I think it's morning for Rudy on also. Is it?
No,
Well, it's just
no,
three after 12. We're at the
All
same
right.
time. So
You're
for
right.
me, it's kind of just hitting the afternoon hour.
Okay.
So a pleasant good afternoon to you all.
A pleasant afternoon to you and to all the viewing audience. It's a pleasure to be here with you to speak about this very important activity that is upcoming. And Mrs. Purcell will now introduce herself.
yes.
I'm going to try my best today to speak in the capacity as a member of the Grenada Association of Principals of Secondary Schools, as well as the Grenada Secondary School Games Association. But at some point, I'll have to speak as a principal. It's a pleasure to be here. It's Intercol 2024, and I'm very excited.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you all being there and important enough to discuss the Intercol 2024 because I know it's one of the highly, and you will agree, one of the highly anticipated sporting event in the calendar, not just for our students, not just for our athletes, but generally, it is the biggest sporting event in Grenada when you look at it. And by extension, outside of Jamaica, it is one of the biggest in the Eastern Caribbean. So let's start off in terms of, probably a 2-week countdown, probably I should say. Where are we at now with the preparations for Intercol 2024?
All right. So thank you very much, Michael. As you indicated, it's one of the largest events outside of the games in Jamaica within the Caribbean. And it's a much anticipated event. So we have to be able to execute it in a manner that will be befitting of its prestige. So where we are, 2 weeks from the countdown, Mrs. Purcell will assist me with that too, but I will go generally. We are almost ready to actually execute the games. It's just a few things that we have to ensure that we have on hand that we need to get from outside of Grenada that we are going to get as of next week. In terms of our officials, the persons who would be on ground executing the events, they have been undergoing training and they are well trained. As a matter of fact, many of them are actually involved in the execution of the games today, and they will be again in the upcoming games. So they are prepared. In terms of the officials, we have our sponsors on board, and we have different degrees of sponsorship. But of course, our tightest sponsor is Republic Bank. So we are most thankful to our sponsors, especially our tightest sponsor, Republic Bank. We also have very much on board the Ministry of Sports, and the Ministry of Sports, in collaboration with the National Lotteries Authority, is playing an integral role in ensuring that we have whatever is needed outside of whatever is given by our title sponsor. So we have our officials, many of them coming from the Ministry of Sports also. And we have sponsors on board such as the Citizenship by Investment, and their sponsorship is very, 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 to me, it's a critical aspect of sponsorship, because they are sponsoring not generally, but they are sponsoring where it's going to touch the schools. And we know that if the schools are not properly prepared, the schools are not going, the event itself cannot be executed well, because the athletes are the ones that are playing the role on the day of the sports. So they are platinum sponsors, and we have Flow Grenada Carry Brewery. We have Grenada Bottling Company, George F. Huggins, Glen Elk Springwater, Real Value IGA Supermarket, Hills and Valley Pharmacy Grenada, Mitchell's Health and Wellness Pharmacy, Rubis West Indies. So these are our sponsors, and we want to express right off the bat, our gratitude for the sponsorship. Mrs. Purcell will speak to you about the ticketing and the preparations in terms of the officials' preparedness in terms of their outfitting and so on.
Right. So I think it's probably best for us to bring on Mrs. Purcell to get it, sort of back to back in terms of the information, because I know the ticketing is always an issue, and I know the public at large in particular will want to know about some of the logistics regarding tickets. So, Mrs. Purcell, it's over to you.
All right, great. Dianne spoke well about many of the things that are in place as we get to this point. But just for a general addition, before we get to tickets and some of the more granular items, much of what Intercol planning occurs from as early as September of the previous year before we get to this point. So when you talk about security and the Royal Grenada Police Force and the role that the security and the security companies play for not just patrons, but all that is entailed in the games, those conversations, those meetings are held long in advance. So where we are now, we are at the tail end of many, many, many planning meetings to get to this point with officials, with coaches, with all as Ministry of Health, Ministry of Sport, Ministry of Education to get to this point. So you asked earlier, where are we now? With less than 2 weeks to go, we're 95% wrapped and ready to have Intercol 2024. In just about a few days, so today is Saturday, by next week also, you'd find that Go to Fed goes up, and the tickets now become, well, Go to Fed is on, but the tickets will now become available on Go to Fed. This is something we introduced last year, online tickets, and we will do so again this year because we piloted last year and it was a successful venture. We had limited tickets available on Go to Fed. This year, that number would increase. So for those who are coming in from abroad and they are coming in closer to the event, that's one way to ensure that you miss the long lines altogether and you secure your tickets up front. So you'll find next week, Go to Fed will become, tickets will become available on Go to Fed as the online platform. As per usual, ticket and outlets like Grenadian Optical will be engaged again this year to have tickets as early as next week, because tickets are now in hand. Tickets are now in country and in hand, so they will go out as of the week coming. Even schools, we've done that before. We don't try to do it again this year, giving schools, just to minimize the lines on the day, giving a limited quantity to schools for a short period of time to ensure that students are catered for even before they get to the stadium. Again, all in an effort to minimize the lines. But even on the day when you get there, The Flow mobile booth, as Flow being one of our sponsors, the Flow mobile booth will continue to be at the location it was last year, together with the outlet at the cricket stadium, so that we don't have to cut the lines all in one place and the congestion at the very same time. But what I would encourage persons to do is to take advantage of buying the tickets early to minimize the lines, because when you get into the lines, the RGPF and the security forces will still have to do their due to ensure that you are searched and you are not with prohibited items before you get into the stadium. So there's a certain amount of wait time that's part and parcel of the process. So ensure that you get your tickets before the day as much as it's possible. But on the day, what you can do to minimize your wait as well is to ensure that you're in compliance with all the regulations as it pertains to what can go into the stadium. The prohibited items are not with you. No bags again are going to be allowed this year on students, so that you're unable to walk in with things that you may not even deem as things that you shouldn't walk with. But from history, the security forces have noticed that so many things can be used for different purposes. So to minimize all of that, we're not going to allow students to walk in with bags again this year, which should shorten the search time before they get into the stadium. So as it pertains to tickets, we're looking at 3 possible venues for you to sit in the stadium and enjoy the wonderful games. We're looking at the main pavilion, we're looking at the bleachers, we're looking at the secondary pavilion. So these are your 3 locations. In the main pavilion, day 1, tickets are at $15. Day 2, tickets would be at $20. Day 3, tickets would be at $30. So it goes up a slight bit every year, as you know, it goes like hot bread and butter. Main pavilion is usually quite filled long before the middle of any of the days. And then if you are interested in coming all 3 days, as some diehards are, and we've seen more and more the diehards over the years, you can buy a season ticket for the main pavilion for $60. So you save someday if you buy your season ticket. Yeah. Well, if you opt to go to the secondary pavilion instead, day 1, you'll be paying $10. Day 2, you'll be paying $15. Day 3, you'll be paying $15 as well. And on the $20. And on the 12s, if you're under 12, you're going to be paying $5 only in the secondary pavilion if you're under 12. And if you're a TAM CC student, you're only going to be paying $15 regardless of the day. There are no season tickets for the secondary pavilion. A note to make for the main pavilion: we will discourage children in the main pavilion. So this year we will not have any children tickets available for the main pavilion. If children are going to go there, you'll have to purchase adult tickets to be on that side. Again, this is a way to manage the congestion that often happens in the various parts of the stadium as it gets deeper into the games.
Just a clarity: when you say children, you're speaking about the school children in uniform?
Children in uniform are redirected to the bleachers always. To the bleachers. So once you're in uniform, you're going to be redirected to the bleachers. Okay. So I'm talking about children who may opt not to wear the uniform and come, but underage children, school age children, rather would be the better term for it. We want children, because again, it's a school day. It's 3 school days. Teachers are at the stadium, principals are at the stadium, students are supposed to be at the stadium. So if you're coming to the stadium, you're supposed to come in your full school uniform, and you will be redirected to the bleachers once you're in full school uniform, and you're supposed to be in full school uniform. So bleachers, children, day 1, $5, day 2, $10, day 3, $15. There are season tickets available for the students on the bleachers, $25 for season tickets. Being very mindful, there are parents with multiple children, so it might be more useful to buy the season tickets for the bleachers, and so they are able to have some cost savings in that regard. This year, there is going to be, again, last year we did not do a great job at marketing this, so I want to make sure I say clearly early, finish line tickets are available this year on all 3 days. In the previous couple of years, more than a couple, maybe 4 or 5 that we've introduced finish line tickets, it was only on day 3. This year, the finish line tickets are going to be applicable to all 3 days. Same price, but all 3 days. Finish line tickets are $50. And again, I want to clearly define where the finish line is, because for the Caribbean Games that's going to come after Intercol, it's going to be a bit different with the arrangement. Our finish line tickets will only be on the upper pavilion of the main pavilion. So the lower stand of the main pavilion is not part of our finish line arrangement. Our finish line arrangement will be at the upper stand of the main pavilion, and each day these finish line tickets will cost $50. Yeah, I think that takes care of the major ticketing prices.
Quite a bit. Mrs. Purcell, you may have to come back and give us a little recap on that, because I know it's quite interesting, and especially with some of the changes that are coming out. for this year, I think it would be important to reiterate, and especially the aspect of the children being not allowed in the main pavilion, some clarity on that as well. And I guess as much security reasons as well. One of the things I want you folks to respond to, the whole aspect of the, overselling, overcrowding, all these aspects of, they have security concerns and things like that. So at what point in time would the Intercol officials determine that tickets are sold out? No more tickets are available for the main pavilion or for the secondary, etc., etc.
Good question. Because what generally happens as it pertains to tickets, what generally happens is that the school is responsible for, because every school has responsibility, every single school. So every teacher, every principal, every school has responsibilities for the execution of Intercol on all 3 days. There's a lot, the machinery behind, but you can appreciate that as a sports person. The machinery behind Intercol is massive. So the schools, more than one, the schools are responsible for the gates at Intercol. We are aware of the size and the capacity of the stadium by seat, every section, how many seats are in every section. We are aware of that. So when we purchase tickets, we purchase with that in mind. And then we are aware of how many, as we had to do last year, how many seats we've allocated for Go to Fit to go online with. Because you might find that I have a ticket and I'm looking at the stadium and it's full up because I'm not physically there, but we're aware of how many seats in terms of the capacity of the stadium. So at varying points, what they do is they do a walkthrough of the stadium and assess how full we are with the capacity to determine when we have to stop sell tickets for that day. And you might say to yourself, well, if we're aware of the capacity of the stadium and we're aware of the number of tickets that we have, why it is we have sometimes the overcrowding that we tend to see on day 3 in particular when everybody comes. It is usually very challenging to look at the diehard fans and turn them away. But it comes a point when the police will have to get involved. It becomes a safety issue when there are too many persons who have been let into the stadium. So I've seen year after year, a time on day 3 when we actually have to physically lock the stadium and no one else can come in because we literally at capacity at that point in time. But how they determine when to lock off, we literally would make a walkthrough at that point, look at the capacity, and make a determination as to when we need to stop sell tickets. Being mindful that there are persons with tickets online who are yet to access the stadium if they are coming late on that day. Because those online are signing with the QR codes at the entry points, we are also aware of how many of them have come and have not come yet to the stadium. So you keep all those logistics in mind as we make a determination when to lock down the stadium.
Okay. Right. That's clear enough for that. But I don't want to get too overwhelmed when the questions are coming in. So I'll probably take one that's already on. Richard Pierre is asking, what's the arrangement for primary school children out of and in uniform?
I'll go ahead, Diane, or you want to go? Go ahead?
I saw my mic was muted, so I left all these things up to you, but I just unmuted. All right. So, yeah. So, children would be in terms of, I guess he's asking in terms of ticketing price and so on. So there is a ticket price for children, as Samantha explained. Children under 12, there's a $5 charge for them. If a child is coming in with the parent and wants to come to the main pavilion, the parent will have to pay the price for the main pavilion. So the prices that were outlined by Ms. Purcell, the first day, second day, third day, depending on the day that the child is attending, that price will have to be paid. If it's the secondary pavilion, because I don't think that a primary school child will be going on to the bleachers. The bleachers is primarily for the secondary schools. So the prices that they have to look at would be the secondary, the main, depending on if they're accompanying parents, and secondary and main, and maybe finish line.
So the only am I unmuted? Yes, the only venue for children to take advantage of the child-friendly price for that age would be secondary pavilion. You're very correct when you say in the main pavilion. If you come to the main pavilion, you'd pay an adult price. So we're trying to ensure that persons are and bleachers are for secondary school students primarily. Yes.
All right. So while we're on that, then what's about are there ticketing outlets that can be accessed in probably St. Patrick, or even for the folks in Caracou before they get down?
So
Or just to go to play?
Not ticketing outlets in the outer parishes, but there will be a period of time when tickets will be available at the schools, primarily for the school children that will be attending. But of course, if adults would like to, like supporters of various schools would like to purchase the tickets from the schools, we make arrangements in that way also. And then there's Grenadian Optical in St. George's.
Okay, right. Rudian?
Yes, I have a lot of questions. But I have one for Samantha that had to deal with principles. So I'm going to leave that for later on. Um, okay, so if we look at all the students in Grenada, they probably will fill the stadium. So would there be a specific number of tickets for the schools to sell in the schools, and then if other student wanted, they're gonna have to go get it on the outlet stores or actually come on the day of the stadium? Is there a specific number of tickets at the schools?
Yeah, we would work with specific numbers for all schools, because be mindful that different schools have different populations. So it's not a one size fits all for every school. But be mindful, all the schools can't fill the stadium. Be mindful that majority of our students, but I should say majority, there's a significant number, just around 1,000 actually, of our students who are athletes on that day. So they are not accommodated on stands. These are your athletes who are going to be accommodated separately. So the rest of the supporting body is who's going to be in the stands. Yeah.
Another question for either for the future coming, or if you guys ever had that in plan, sectioning out certain schools. So a school have this section, and every school have their own section. So when the tickets about that is the section. Have this ever been talked about?
Rudian is segregated.
It's done.
No. Yeah, because it happened in a lot of sports where you go to college games in football and so forth. You have the section. This is the section where the students are for that school, and the other section. So it happens. You see it in major sports. It's always the section out, right? So yeah.
Good question, Rudian. But what happens sometimes is that, for example, we see in some sports, the folks from St. David's Catholic Secondary School, their supporters, will probably get into the stadium as early as possible, occupy a section. They take up. Yes. And that's, we even see track blazers, they do that as well. So sometimes that's what will happen.
No, but I'm saying it too, that if the section is section for a specific area, no one should sit there, because it's identified for that specific area for specific people.
We are
so
very
no one should be sitting there, right?
We sit together, we work together, certain schools support certain
No, most definitely. I've been to many Intercol. I compete, so
all of us support each other.
Yeah. And so no, I've been to it. I just like, a lot of schools like to stay together so they can cheer together. It does. So it is a I think it's a valid question.
Yes, it is.
No, certainly. So no, definitely. And like I said, it's going to be awesome. So here's a question for you, Samantha, as a principal. So we're kind of separating from the school from the school sports from a little bit. As a principal, have you guys ever thought about getting student IDs for the students, so that when they come to any games, they could show that to say that I am a student? Because if past students from the year previously could just put on a school uniform and just come into the games, and now they're paying a student price. So yeah, have you ever thought of finding a student ID for the kids in the school?
It's interesting that you said past students can put on uniforms. They do. Despite their height, their size, their look, they really do.
Yeah.
I don't know why they try it every year, but schools do have IDs. So we've been doing that a while now. Schools have school IDs. So you do the school IDs. The athletes who are involved in Intercol, they have their IDs as well as their Intercol IDs. Teachers have their IDs as well. And even if you miss that boat, to be part and parcel of the machinery of Intercol, there's certain identifications and credentials you have to get to be part of that. So everything in that regard requires some level of identification. So that's done.
Okay.
So students have IDs. And so despite the uniform and how pleasant you look and how much you've kept the weight, that can't fly.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's good.
Noted well, because I remember back in school, back in the 80s, there was once a time when we even at the GBSS, we had situation where we had to present our IDs for this actually our school sports, because there was one year where students were actually free, but you have to present your ID and you have to be in school uniform. Yeah, but that was just once. I don't know if it was just a trial or what. But there's so much to discuss in addition to what we're speaking about, because this week we saw the announcement that there's this added feature with the march pass of the various schools, the competing schools. And my question to you now will be, what, after listening to you, how do you cater for the influx of, or the interest in the march pass? Because it seems as if it's generating some interest, albeit I'm not too much a fan of it, because I'm more for the competitiveness. But how do you therefore will cater for the influx of participants, well, not just participants, well, students and probably parents, the general public, on the 2 days in particular, the first and the second, because we know the chaos on the third and final day already. But if you have this added feature on day 1 and day 2, what are the logistical arrangements to ensure that the sort of crowd we have on day 3 can be taken care of in day 1 and day 2, days 1 and 2?
Okay, so I thought you were asking for specifically about explanation for the March Pass, but I realize, as you said, you're not a fan of March Pass, so so you want to know what's in place. So it's the same procedure that we put in place for the third day. We just know that we have to be prepared to implement on the first day and the second day. Once we see that increase, we have been seeing an increase over the years in attendance. We have an increased spectatorship on the second day. So now with this added attraction, we expect that it will grow even a little bit more, and we expect that the first day will be growing by leaps and bounds. So as Samantha indicated earlier, the Royal Grenada Police Force, they work in collaboration with us. They're very important stakeholders, and they are prepared to help us to manage our spectators. So the same plan that we have in place for the third day is what will be implemented for the second and the first day, once it is necessary that those things are implemented.
By way of clarification, when I say I'm not a fan, it's not so much. It's just that it has its place, My thing is just not into the Intercol, but I am asking it also. Hold on, I'm asking it because I can't be biased. I want the public to know. But while you are at it, can you just give us some information as how it will, will take place? I mean, I know last night, for example, Kirani and I, we were discussing it, and we wanted to know in terms of whether points for schools or just the prizes, or what are the intricacies of this March Pass. Enlighten us, please.
Okay, so the points will be going. Yes, there will be points for schools, but the points are not going to be added to the the sports, because some people are asking that question. So we want to make it clear. It's just March Pass points, and this March Pass is being sponsored by Classic Lighting, D Sports Shop. Samantha, help me with because I don't want to leave out anybody, but we will ensure that we call everybody's name eventually. But I know that these sports shop and primarily Classic Lighting are on board for that March Pass. We also have Blue Bubbles. The March Pass will not be as we usually, where we have a stop and whatever, but it will just be a match past. So they're matching, the schools are going to be uniformed. There will be, we allow for a few cheerleaders out front. The schools will be carrying their flags and the match past. The intention is that the schools will complete the match past during the intermission so that it will not hold back any of the sporting events. And that is because we believe that during the match, during the intermission, we need to have something to keep
Okay.
people who are in the stadium engaged and
Also,
entertained
is it intermission during the
during the
intermission?
intermission.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So you
I'm
see
on
how
board.
important it is. And we also have to look at the importance of getting students to
Yeah.
follow instructions,
Yeah.
to work together as a team, to coordinate and so on. And these are the things that a match pass teaches to
Mhm.
to children. So they move in unison, they
Yeah.
listen
Yeah.
to instructions, they follow instructions, and all of that. Even it brings out a lot of creativity in our
Mhm.
children.
Yeah.
So
Well, I'm
it
glad for that clarity because I think that was the concern, and I'm glad to know that it is form of entertainment during the intermission and all.
yes.
Yeah, so I think you were able to bias it with Rudian was not too
No,
Rudian
certainly.
was a bit concerned, but I think
I
you
was very
dealt with
concerned
yeah.
about
So I
that,
think you
and my
I think
question
you
was if it's going to be a full competition. When they say there is some cheerleaders
I think
where the
you were able
cheerleaders
to
also will do some things. It could have been nice to have it separate day,
Yes.
and then and that would have been nice. And the championship, the team that win could have been that entertainment during during the final
well
day if it was a
not
separate. But you say it's just a match pass,
It's
so it's
just a
nothing
match pass. Yes.
beyond just the match
Yes.
pass. So
Yes.
I
thanks
And
feel
the
much
for
prize
better. I feel much
thanks
better.
for
right.
thanks for
The prizes, the schools will
yeah.
get the first five schools will get um a prize money monetary and medals, not medals,
Mhm,
trophies.
mhm,
So schools are really looking forward, and there will be a sixth um prize that will be paid to a choice of the judges, not in the first five, but the judges will make a choice. So
mhm.
schools are looking forward to that because anyhow schools can get back something from Intercol is it's a plus.
And as someone is asking, do the athletes normally take part, whether or not the athletes taking
The
part in
athletes will not be participating in the
No,
match pass because part
right.
of the objective too is to get other students
other
Right.
involved.
students.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Thanks
now
for
we
the
come talk about
clarity.
ticketing. Now go back to ticketing. No, does this match pass team do they need to be have tickets to get in?
They will have their special tickets for
Tickets, yeah.
entry.
Okay.
Yes. And they will be
So
in a particular section on the day that they have to participate, up until the time that they
Then
participate.
okay, perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
thanks for the clarity and thanks for buying us over.
Yes.
I feel, like I said,
And did
I
she
feel
say to
much
you
better.
that
I feel much better.
they're going to be marching to the songs of the Royal Grenada Police Force?
Well,
Oh, yes.
yeah, that's what I heard, and I think it's a wonderful inclusion in having the Royal Grenada Police Force band involved in it.
Hmm.
And I think it brings a little more competitiveness for because whereas some schools have their own bands, it will be a sort of
Yeah.
bias for them,
Yeah.
you know. So having the Royal Grenada Police Force band participate, I think it will bring some level of a level playing field to all. And I hope it's something that will eventually work out. It won't take away, as you say, it won't take away from the competitiveness because it's been during the intermission and it's a form of entertainment, it's a form of inclusivity, getting more of the non-competitors involved, getting folks who do normally come to participate in these one and two there as well. So thanks for that initiative and thanks for the explanation as well. You know, kudos to you.
Yes.
In terms of the program itself, are there any events that we'll be seeing that will added to the program this year or any modifications? I know from time to time we sort of add events. I know there were some concerns about the program with the 4x4. I think I saw some comments on social media about the 4x4, the preliminaries. I know you don't have a technical person there with you, but
Yeah, and
um,
that's the role that Mr. Andal was supposed
and
to,
yeah,
but we
uh,
could speak generally still.
yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead. In terms of the program itself, are there any new events on the schedule that we can
Y-
look forward to?
yes, we do. We have the hurdles. So we will have 400 meters hurdles, and that would be on day one, 400 meters hurdles for the junior girls and the junior boys. We also have 100 meters hurdles, and that will be on day one also. We have the seniors Well, I wouldn't go in because I have to go through the whole program to give you all of that. But I can tell you we have the 100 meters and the 400 meters hurdles.
Okay, so the
And
hurdles
that's
are,
for the junior,
yeah. So
right?
For the
so
different categories, juniors and seniors.
now the question about, because now that we have hurdling sort of back into the program to an extent, not all schools have a hurdling program. So
No
how do
school.
we?
No school has a hurdling program.
Well, as a form of disclosure, I was a hurdle champion at GBSS. So we had a hurdle in 80 meters sub junior boys hurdle champion. So
You
record
had
holder. Yeah.
GBSS, okay?
So I know over a period of time the whole issue of the equipment itself, the hurdle itself. I know some schools don't have it, but it's nice to see that we bring it
Well,
hurdle
we're
back
bringing it
into the
back,
program,
yes,
because
yes.
it's also whether or not is students just run in and jump over and jump down and things like that, because we see that it's a state in the character games, for example, and it will be nice to see some of our athletes start getting into the huddling program, and probably by having it into the Intercol program may encourage schools in the future to get more involved in the huddling program. But only so far we've seen huddling back. There was an appeal once or twice about pole vault and the multi events, for example, because Grenada has, I mean, as it is now, we have the only multi-event athlete as a champion in
Yeah,
Lyndon, Victor,
yes.
and then we have his brother as well. They are all
Mm-hmm.
champions somewhere. They're the Commonwealth Games, Pan Am, World Athletics Championships. How, in going forward, how do we hope to use the Intercol as a means of getting most schools involved in these multi programs?
Right. So we have the hurdles as a new event this year, but if you recall, we had the multi events, a certain aspect of it, because we had the hip and the
Oh, they
octathlon last year. We continuing with this year, and an aspect of the that event was the hurdles, if you remember. But now we're bringing in the hurdles as an individual event on its own.
Mhm.
So eventually, we're going to be bringing in the pole vault, as you have indicated, because we intend to bring in, as long as we have the facilities, gradually bring in different events so that the student athletes will be preparing from since there for those world competitions, for those world events that are out
Mhm.
there. So we have a lot of plans, and it's just a matter of gradually implementing them. We also have a feature that we had last year where we had the special education students taking part in an exhibition race. So we will have that again this year as part of the Intercol Games.
Right. So we do have the octathlon, which is
Yes, we do.
specifically for the boys.
The
I think it's
boys.
about 8 events,
Hmm.
right? The decathlon is normally 10. The
Yes, so that's why I
octathlon
said
will
a
be
certain aspect of the ball.
aspect. Right.
Yes. We
Okay. So
don't have
that's
all the events as yet, but we expect that gradually we are going to build into that.
mhm,
Hmm.
right.
And a question
Um,
concerning the hurdles. Again, is it specific students you guys allowing to run the hurdles?
Yes, the various schools are training their athletes, because when you do registration, the registration of athletes is done with the event in mind. So you register your athletes that are going to participate in particular events. Some will cross over, like you will have some students who are running the straight races, but
mhm.
they may also be registered to run the hurdles. So you train them for the hurdles. So the various schools are doing whatever they can, because the different sporting facilities throughout the islands were given. I said the islands because I believe Carrick was part of it also. Were given implements, they were given hurdles. So the different schools could go there, make arrangements with the managers of those playing fields, those parks, and go there and train their students. Some schools are doing their own little bit and making their own hurdles, but I remember, for example, Mr. Andall saying that we need to have the real equipment, because when the hurdles that we make, that we construct at our schools, hit back the athletes, it's not the same way that a real hurdle will hit back the athlete, and they need to get accustomed to that. But, we are using whatever resources we have to ensure that our schools are properly prepared or adequately prepared. Eventually, we will have those supplies for every school. And that's one of the aims, Mr. Purcell can bear me out, of our association, our principals association, and our games association, primarily our principals association, to ensure that schools are supplied with equipment that they need so that they can train for the different, so no school will be left behind.
Yeah.
No, and I asked the question, because I'm a part of the high school track and field out here in Toronto for Ontario, and it's a liability. And certainly because kids who never train in high jump want to do high jump on the day, and it is a liability. We have athletes who actually were paralyzed because they was never trained for high jump,
Yeah.
and then they come on high jump on a rainy day. And same thing with hurdles. We have kids who actually break their leg on hurdles because they never did it, and they come and do it on the day. One, it was raining. One, they never did it. So that's why I asked the question, because it's certainly a liability that I don't think certainly you guys want to be,
Right.
And I
having
think,
on your watch.
it has a lot to do too with the management of the athletes. So some of the schools will
Yes.
involve that. Samantha, you were saying something?
Yes, I wanted to interject. Last year, after last year's Intercol, so not in this year, last year, in collaboration with the Grenada Athletic Association, GAA, coincidentally, they're the ones doing the national champs this weekend. A workshop was done, and that was under the leadership of Sir Conrad Francis, for the hurdles in particular. So coaches were exposed to them, as well as students and athletes were involved in that workshop, to allow, just what Dan said, to allow them to be able to get in advance, so that you're not coming to the call to do hurdle for the first time. So that training was done up to a year ago to refresh as we were about to reintroduce hurdles again. And she's very correct. Sometimes people ask, well, where's the money for Intercol going? One of the largest aims of Intercol, for it to become as profitable as it needs to be, is to be able to put the monies right back in the schools. So it may not be sporting implements for every school in the initial stages, but at least at a district level, so that they have access to, because the conversation about level playing field now comes up. But that's a whole next conversation, because school size makes a difference. The officials you have at your school and how they are trained, their specialties will make a difference. But as a minimum, if they all have access to resources, because even some schools are next to playing fields or have access to playing fields that are close by, and some schools are not. Sometimes you might find that those outer parish schools are mindful that those in town are close to the stadium, if they're using the stadium to train on tracks, where that's not a reality for schools in the outer parishes. So that whole conversation about level playing field becomes a whole next conversation. But at a minimum, out of Intercol, one of the aims is to be able to buy sporting implements for all schools, or have schools have access to sporting implements across the whole of Grenada, Carrick, and Petit-Matic. And that's a very large point we've been making for years, and we made with the Ministry of Sports, and we met with them very early this year in our planning.
Okay. And
is there a way that you guys have a relationship with stadium authority, those who's in charge, that schools who wants to come in and train for, especially the hurdles, to be done on the track itself, have access? Is there a way that you guys as a body has that access for schools who wants to use the stadium for training?
That's a conversation that I wish there was a government official on now who can easily answer that question in terms of access and the cost involved and things like that. There is some level of access, to be fair, because the warm-up track is there, and some track clubs do use the warm-up track. But if I stood here and I said, well, I'm sitting. If I sit here and I say that all schools have that free level of access at any point that they need to, that may not be the case.
Okay.
Yeah. So while we are at the stadium now, that will be the home for Intercol 2024. So I assume after this program, you folks will be, especially the principals and members of the Secondary Schools Games Association, will be gathering at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium. Why do you think it's important for you folks to be there? I'm thinking, but for the listeners and viewers, obviously you have to do the walkthrough, look at all the processes that's going on, because there was some new, well, the laying of the track, and I'm not sure if they did any work in terms of the facility itself. But certainly you want to have a walkthrough to ensure that when we get there for the 12th of March, that everything is in place.
Definitely. We have done some already, and we are going to do one. We were intending to do it Thursday. I think we will do it earlier for this week. Next week, sorry. Because as the work progresses, changes are made, and we have to keep making adjustments, because our plans were initially to warm up in the normal warm-up area, and we've had to make a change to another area. And then by the time we did a second walkthrough, we realized we had to scrap that plan again and make adjustments for a third area. So we have to keep constantly doing those walkthroughs and making adjustments as we go along.
But from here we can say that we are ready.
We are ready, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely, we are ready.
Yeah.
Yes.
Match pass and all. Yeah.
Everything.
I know. Really, they try to.
You guys love that match pass.
Yeah,
Yes.
You love that match pass, boy. Oh boy, you love that match pass. But that certainly is a good thing that you guys are ready. I think the artists are ready. I think the fans are ready. Me myself, I'm ready for Magdalene College to win sports. So I'm ready.
And
So
I'm ready
ready.
for SAS.
I represent all the sports in the nation.
Yes, well, in my role, I represent all. I represent and support all.
But looking at the start of the national championships that's ongoing now, I can see that the athletes are ready, because most of the athletes themselves are secondary school athletes, and I can see that there's this urge, there's this for excellence, right? And if what I'm seeing there, the athletics championships, is a forerunner to Intercol, I am telling folks who are in Grenada, don't miss Intercol, because it appears that it's almost as if those athletes have been starved for a while.
Oh yes.
Not that they are starved, but they are behaving as if they were starved and they're hungry, And there's this level of competitiveness I'm seeing, even in the disposition, how they're walking out, how they're competing, there's this urge to compete. And with 2 weeks to go, I think we can expect a very, weather permitting, we should expect a very competitive 3 days of track and field at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium. And I think it's building, that anticipation is building. I'm already seeing the social media hype. This time of the year, we know the schools always come out with the social media hype and the bragging and all these sort of things, and then we call the trash talking. But it's good. It's good to see that, and I'm glad that you folks came on to provide us with some clarity and some updates in terms of that. One important aspect, though, I know normally the police will provide information separately as well, but the security, because I know with all that is happening these days, the whole issue of security becomes very important, and a massive event as the Intercol, which is the largest sporting event in Grenada, obviously security will be an important facet. If you can give us any information regarding the security and how fans themselves, parents, should feel comforting that when their kids go to the stadium or when they go to the stadium, they are safe.
Samantha,
go ahead.
Yes.
Starts off with education. So as principals, so we start at the school level. First of all, it starts at the school level. As principals, we have a responsibility. We've had a responsibility every year up to now, and this year is no different, in having these conversations at our general assemblies in terms of how our students are to conduct themselves at the stadium. So the fact that basic, you're supposed to be in full school uniform to attend. So you prepare for success. So you come in the right gap. You don't want the extras because some schools have very strict rules about the hairstyles and all the extra. Yeah. We're very clear as to what's accepted because we would find that at the gates there are teachers from schools who are identifying their students. And if you are not in compliance with your school rules, which has happened before and will happen again, you will be barred from entering the stadium. Ticket or no ticket, and we're very serious about that. It is still a school day. It's a school day at the stadium. So it starts with principals at schools, but making students aware as to what is acceptable and what is not. Last year, we indicated on the advice of the security forces that we do not allow students to come in with bags. That's going to continue this year because you'd find that you'd always find a few who have some other objective other than coming to enjoy the games. For some reason, we don't know why. So we're trying to minimize the opportunity for them to get tempted to do things that they ought not to be tempted to do outside of enjoying the games in a peaceful fashion. So the lack of bags would mean that you can't carry things with you other than your money to buy and your tickets. You won't be able to carry anything with you. What we notice sometimes, one of the ways, the loopholes that they tried is that some students would stay up on the top of the beaches and send things up. We're mindful, we've observed, so we're prepared for that this year. So you may not go in with a bag, but once you're in, so it might send up a bag to you from the outside. We observed that last time around, so we're prepared for that this time around. Additional to that, you find that within the hallways, as per usual, not just schools have responsibilities for security in the passageways and teachers, but you'd also find that there are security forces and members of the RGPF who are also placed at strategic locations throughout the stadium. So there's not just a when you get in, how you get in. Once you get in, you also have to maintain and remind you of what the code of conduct ought to be while you're in the stadium. So that's where security forces will come in. And yes, if in fact students are found to have violated or somehow found a loophole and got in, as has been the case before, the RGPF will have the authority to do what is necessary in terms of detaining and allowing our students to be barred access from the stadium. That is, if it warrants that kind of action. When those kinds of actions are taken, the principals of the representative schools are usually informed firsthand, and so we are able to intervene in situations like that and make the decisions together because we're working in collaboration with. It's not one or the other. At the end of the day, we all have the same goal, not just because we want our patrons to be safe, we want our students to come and enjoy the games, but we're also mindful that these games are being broadcasted internationally. And Grenada, by and large, must continue to be a safe and peaceful place.
Mm-hmm. Well said,
Very
and I
well
agree with
said.
that. Yeah. So certainly the folks can rest assured that in terms of the safety of the patrons of Intercol 2024, you know, we getting it from the source, as we'll say, and they can rest assured that all precautions are taken and all measures are in place to ensure the safety of everyone at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium come March 12, 13, and 14. Important though is the students getting home after Intercall. And it used to be a problem specifically for day three, but with our March pass now, and we expect all the students instead of going to the beach to come to the stadium. How we ensure that these students
So
return to their homes safely after Interval.
So that again is something in which we work in collaboration with the Royal Grenada Police Force, and we're asking our parents to take on some responsibility also to partner with us to ensure that the children are returned to their homes on time and safely. We work with the buses, the bus associations for the various, especially in the outer parishes. And what we do as an organization, we supply team passes for the buses, so those buses would drop off the students at the stadium and they will pick them up at the stadium.
Stadium.
So the students will be given specific information as to where the team buses will be located, and they will get there immediately after the end of the ceremony, immediately after the end of the games on the days 1 and 2, and they will be taken safely to their homes. The Royal Grenada Police Force, as part of the security force that will be there at the stadium, will also help us to ensure that the students do not loiter after the Intercol Games. And we're making an appeal to all parents to take some responsibility to ensure that the children are compliant. And we're also appealing, we do that at our various schools, sending the message to the students to be responsible, to travel with their schools and obey the rules that are set down, the general rules of school and the rules of Intercol.
Glad you said that. Let's say take some of our comments. Hazel is saying good evening. It's great having you all. There is also Brother Dominic Jeremiah. Well, good day to you, sir. And as a former chairman himself, he says, please take note that the Ministry of Education is supporting our principals and teachers in this effort as a key partner. It is a school day. Principals and teachers are expected to be present. In addition, we expect our parents to support their schools to ensure our students comply with the instructions of their schools. So as we are saying, it is a normal school day as we just outside of the four walls of the institution. Therefore, we expect our parents, our teachers, and our principals to support the students just as a normal school day. Roger Duncan is saying, outside of the execution of the games, is there any other plan, program, or even strategic objective of the Games Association for the growth and development of athletes, coaches, games officials? We'll probably come back to that. Hazel is saying, excited about the games, and we are here to support in any way we can. And Mr. Jeremiah comes back to say, Intercol is education away from the school premises. The entire school community must support this effort. Students must obey their principals, and I will also add their teachers. Okay? Yes. So, Roger Duncan's strategic plan objective is asking about for the growth and development of athletes, coaches, and games officials.
Yes, definitely. Well, let me explain, because I realize that some people do not understand the role of the Games Association, fully understand the role of the Association of Principals either. So the Games Association is actually a creature of the Principals Association. So the Grenada Association of Principals of Secondary Schools is actually the if you want, for want of a better term, the owners of the games. But the game is executed through the Grenada Secondary School Games Association, which consists of a number of stakeholders coming together. So you have people from various walks in our society. So we have principals, we have people from Ministry of Sports, we have people from other various ministries, and anyone that can contribute in a meaningful way that we can co-opt into the association, we do. And the objective of one of the objectives of this association is to help with the development of sports in Grenada. And not just athletics, but sports in general. It just so happens that we have already established that institution of Intercol. So Intercol is the main thing on our agenda, but we do participate and engage in other areas of sports. And part of what we do facilitate training. When most of the training that takes place for our officials are actually initiated, even though it's officials and experts from another arm, maybe Ministry of Sports, that will be facilitating, they're actually initiated by the association. So we do a lot in terms of the development already, and we have a vision to do more to ensure that the students, our student athletes, our games officials, and everyone that will be a part of sports in Grenada will be properly trained and properly prepared to execute their duties in a professional manner.
Well, yes. So thanks very much. And as Roger is saying, excellent. Also, if you can just, I know folks that you are pressed for time. You have to, if can just give me 5 minutes because I want to give you the opportunity to wrap up as well, and for
Yes.
Samantha to repeat some of the information she gave earlier as well. But one person is saying about the, in terms of those receiving medals, for them to practice the body language, I guess as much as all the TV antics as well too, because knowing for a fact that it's broadcast live. And by the way, I think we have to move away from just being broadcast live, but we have an international audience when it comes to Intercol, because outside of the boys and girls champs, Intercol in Grenada is one of the most look forward to junior sporting event in the region. And I say outside of the boys and girls champs in Jamaica. In fact, Mr. Jeremiah can allude to the fact that probably the last 2 years, we had some initial discussions when I brought the chairman of ISA onto our program, right? And there was this contact between Grenada and Jamaica. And just because of the scheduling, I think we didn't get the officials from Grenada to go to Jamaica. There was something where we wanted the officials from Grenada to go to Jamaica to look at the ISA championships, and things like that. So following that, late last year, there was someone from Guyana who contacted Grenada. Well, through me, I passed it on to Mr. Jeremiah as well, but I think it's really Jamaica he wanted to get in touch with, because they saw the Grenada Intercol, and he was referring to the best Intercol, the best school championships in the region. So I say, I think he was getting us mixed up, I know we won that kind of accolade, but I think it's Jamaica really referring to. But in truth and in fact, they're seeing, and they're liking what they're seeing, okay? And I think because Jamaica is at that level and Grenada is coming there, there's now this new attention to Grenada. The folks in Barbados, for example, I know 2 principals who have been in contact when I was involved in the Invitational. They look forward to the Grenada Intercol. So we have to get things right, and especially what we're putting out in terms of the television. And by the way, kudos to the production people. They have been doing a marvelous job, TR Communications and things. So I have no qualms about that. And I think our athletes are up to mark. So it's just our officials to get things right. I am confident. Rudian is confident, just as how we bought into the March Pass, that everything is on the eye. Yeah, but
before we go, just let me because that one is kind of plain, and I want to make sure that I give kudos to the sponsors of the March Pass before we go any further. So it is Classic Lighting Caribbean that has partnered with the Sports Shop, Blue Bubbles, PA Rental and Event Supplies Company, and Tropical Catering. So these are the sponsors for the March Pass.
Yeah. And the final point, before you all come in to do your wrap up and any other thing, has to do, and you made mention of it, and I think you brought some clarity, because it appears that the Grenada Secondary School Games Association is moving to the step where they can, and my thing was that for them to take charge of secondary school sports, similar to what ISA in Jamaica is. So it's not just track and field. Track and field may be the
mother.
Yeah, let's put it as that, of it, and we see that even in, and Rudy, and that in NCAA, we know basketball and American football, they carry the mantle of, college sports, right? The others, not even track and field, is, bring the sort of revenue. So Intercol brings the revenue, but it can support the other sporting events like Intercol football, Intercol cricket, netball, all these things. But I am hoping that at some point in time that we can have a central, what we call it a sort of secretariat that can administer through the Grenada Secondary School Games Association, that can administer secondary school sports. Obviously in collaboration with the ministries of sports and education and all the other stakeholders. But track and field obviously will be the main one, but the other sporting disciplines can be supported as well. But they can get a sort of attention as Intercol athletics. So whether it's football, whether it's netball, whether it's cricket, basketball, just as the ISA, they are responsible for secondary school sports in Jamaica, all secondary school sports. I'm hoping that at some point the principal associations can look into that and see how they can, not just Intercol athletics, but all the other sporting events can also be part of the process.
Under the one banner. Yeah,
We
certainly.
should have, okay, and just some final comments here. Hazel is saying interviewing skills is also important if we can do some work around preparing our athletes in that area. Mike is saying, no, not Mike. Somebody say Mike and Rudian, we should have the conversation about pin relays in a future episode. Definitely the principals will have to give us a little more about that. Bascom, we were always number 2 to Jamaica in track and field. With the new initiative of the Games Action, we'll always be number 2. Dominic is saying, I'm proud of this Intercol planning team. Mrs. Jeffrey, Mrs. Purcell, Mr. Andall. Please take note that the conversation and secretariat is being put in place. Conversation started with 2 associations already. This team will take it forward. Glad to hear that. Folks, your opportunity started with Samantha.
Mike, can I ask the question first before we go?
Please. Yeah.
So the question, when I mentioned something earlier on about teams going together. Now, one of the things I noticed, I look at a few sports and the podium is always also settled for just one person. In the future, can the podium be bigger for relay teams? Could also be a part in collecting their medals as well. I think that would be really nice. It would be something I'm doing up here, and something we're really working on at our championship as well. So all 4 members can come in one and collect the medals together. And I was watching a few track and field meets, and I seen that, and I said, I think it would be nice that all 4 of them go up, meaning that build a bigger stadium, and that could be something that would be included. You can mention we all won. It'll be nice that they all get on the podium and collect a medal.
Rudian, just one solution to that. With 2 weeks to go, you have time.
It's not for this year.
No.
You
have time to set some money so we can build up.
Somebody might want to build something quickly, and then restructure it in the future, But it would be nice, to include all, because some of the athletes will never get to go on the podium, and that would be nice. Yeah,
we'll do a little thing for this year, and then we'll do something bigger. So Samantha, yes.
All right. Just a couple of things as I wrap.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. A couple of things as I wrap. I'm glad Mr. Jeremiah chimed in, because it is fair to Mr. Jeremiah to indicate that those conversations were held under Mr. Jeremiah in previous associations. So you're on the ball when you spoke about the fact that the other sports, I know football conversation has happened already, cricket conversation has happened, that the Grenada Secondary School Games Association will become that body, as you indicated, as Secretariat of Sorts, that will manage and administer all sports and events that are at a national level that involves all schools. So that conversation started with Mr. Jeremiah, and he's right. Now with our new leadership with Mrs. Jeffrey, very capable Mrs. Jeffrey, and Mr. Andall at the top, and these are sporting persons and personalities. Do they think they're winning the call? We will continue to ensure that that conversation goes forward properly. Fun fact before I wrap as well, you talked about the athletes being hungry, and hungry is the right word to use. Hungry and ready, and our officials, generally speaking, our officials, I am made to understand over the years, in my involvement in Intercol over the years, usually get pretty decent commendation for their level of officiating. So I do expect that to continue to grow with the training that they continue to receive from time to time. But I found this year, fun fact. So I had a few principals at our sports was last week. The principals are just as hungry as the athletes. In the middle of my sports, you had principals sitting there, and one of them was one of the gold champs. They won the female division in the call for a number of years. Actually, very excited and aggressive might be the more appropriate word about the prospects for this year. So principals are just as hungry for the championship. The beauty about it, though, is that we work as a team. So it's a very good collaboration. There's great camaraderie among us as secondary school principals. Mm-hmm. I advocate always for the small schools. As they say, small axes cut down big trees. So at this very point, I encourage all to come to Intercol 2024 Team SGI.
Yeah, and before you give us, I want you to also give us the prizes as well. The
price of tickets. Last run of the price of tickets. Do it again?
Yes.
No?
Yeah.
No?
Yes, please.
All right. Main pavilion, $15, $20, $30. Day 1, day 2, day 3. Main pavilion, $15, $20, $30. If you're looking for season tickets, $60. If you're in a secondary pavilion, $10, $15, $25. Day 1, day 2, day 3. $10, $15, $25. No season tickets for the secondary pavilion, but if you have children under the age of 12, they will get into the secondary pavilion with $5 on any given day. And TAMCC students are going to pay $15 on any given day. If you're in the bleachers, that's our secondary school students now in uniform. If you're on the bleachers, day 1, day 2, day 3, $5, $10, $15. $5, $10, $15. There are season tickets available for the bleachers at $25, so it's a cost-effective approach for parents with multiple children. Finish line tickets this year in full effect from day 1, $50, day 2, $50, day 3, $50. The finish line for Intercol this year in particular will be the upper stand of the main pavilion, $50 to get, and these are very limited in quantity. So if you're interested in finish line tickets, these will likely be finished by the time next week is out. So tickets will become available both online and at the ticketing outlets and at schools from next week, God's will. And no, we don't have 2 weeks into call. It's just 10 days now.
Wow, that's interesting. So finally, Liz Forsyth is saying 3 persons to hand out medals as well, spread it out to the significant people in the life of Grenada. So I assume she wants more people involved in distributing the medals, etc. And someone is inquiring about an Intercol preview. We haven't had a preview in a while, whether or not that's a possibility.
Yes. So we're working on a preview, but it will not be a hard copy because we're moving with the times. So it's going to be online. So we have already, we collating information because some of the schools have just completed their sports meet. So everything is just happening in a rush. So that's why we have not had that edition out as yet, but our PR team, media and PR promotion, they're working assiduously to ensure that electronic preview is up.
Yes. Right. And regarding someone is saying, well, in fact, Liz is saying that primary school principals and teachers should not have to pay to enter the gates. They have made the foundational sacrifices for many of the secondary school athletes. So something probably you all can consider.
Okay, so we listen.
Yeah, something.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I think that is something that you all should at least consider when you look at it. You know, they lay the foundation, right? So, yeah, it could
actually the parents made the children.
They have to be walking. They have to be walking to get it.
Because we could go as far back as that.
No, but something that can be considered, and it could be
if at a point we see that can happen, but as it stands, we have the current situation doesn't allow for. Yeah,
we have to have a much larger stadium.
Yes.
Yeah, I know that's the challenges you have when you have these things like that, and the stadium can only accommodate that amount.
Yes.
When you have to cater for all, you have to cater for a section, which means the students themselves. Then you have to cater for the general public, and then you have to even cater for officials as well, right? You have your sponsors, So I know it's
but Michael,
I mean, you folks get it done, you know what I mean?
But Michael, the schools can pay for the teachers.
Well, yeah, it could be a discussion. I mean, you have it's something that they say they can look into, and at some point there may be a concession, that they may be able to do something. But I think it's a good suggestion, and something that they can consider and then determine whether or not it's possible. I want to thank you very much, folks, because well, Mrs. Jeffrey and Mrs. Mr. Andall, because I know he's there supporting his art.
Yes.
But I wonder, Mrs. Purcell, how do you feel being in the midst of someone like Mrs. Jeffrey, the Andall, when they both believe they can win Intercol?
Funny, very short, funny story. Mr. Andall promised he was going to be at SGI's sports match. Ms. Jeffrey knows that this last week. hope for this competition. You know, you came to town and you got afraid and you didn't come. You have to like, how life feel like to make a little thing
Yeah,
to
I know, I know.
Interestingly, she believes that she will win Intercol.
Right. And also, Mrs. Jeffrey, I wonder how you feel knowing that your husband is McDonald College and you're a SAS, you know? So I assume some very interesting conversations going on, you know?
Yeah, well, right now we're the heart of everyone. So, and as you know, I taught at McDonald College for 20
correct.
Oh,
years.
okay, right, right,
So
okay.
I wear
Yeah.
the heart of everyone now as in my position. But of course, I mean, that's SAS is my school. So I have to go all out, full out with SAS. Um,
I think there will be a camera on you that when we McDonald College students is doing good, to make sure that you're not waving something, because so there will be a camera on you all times, to make sure that But
But
certainly, it is good. Like I said, I'm a heartbeat of McDonald College. I love
yes.
my school, and certainly, win, lose, tie, draw is. I know it's not part of Intercol, but I'm a firm supporter of McDonald College and all students. I'm an athlete, and I love to see athletes perform and just go there, do the best, and that's really what we really want for the
you know,
athletes to go there and have fun at the same
there,
time. Have fun.
there's always something I think that brings brings Grenadians together. We had our Golden Jubilee just recently. Then after that, we had this lull, and then we had this whole issue with the crime and the violence, etc. And I think Intercol is the one that will probably bring us together now.
Together
Okay,
again.
yeah, it will bring us together again because what we see is that folks coming out to support their schools, but ultimately they support the athletes.
Mhm.
You know, they're there to support athletes in
Yeah.
general. So whether it's SAS, whether it's McDonald College, whether it's J.W. Fletcher, whoever, Karaku, Happy Hill, they're there to support the athletes because one thing you do know is that after Intercall, they'll be there to support the athletes for Carifta Games. And there's nothing about which school you represent,
It's
but you're
about
representing
Grenada.
Grenada. It's about
Mhm.
Grenada. So I think that's to me that Intercall is one thing that no matter what happens, don't mess with people Intercall. That's what they say.
Exactly.
Don't mess with my Intercall. We're there to support, you know. Yeah. So certainly I want to thank you very much for being here, providing the information, and I'll see if I can get the especially the information regarding the admission price of admission, and we
Mhm.
can probably put it on our various social media website and pages and what have you to circulate so that people can know that tickets are available and where they can get tickets and the prices as well. Final words from you, wrap up.
Okay, so I just want to join my sister in encouraging people to come out, but they have to come out early because, as we have reiterated, there is limited space in the stadium. So if people do not purchase the tickets early and come to the stadium early, they may just be locked out because it's limited capacity. We promise that this is going to be a very competitive event, and it's going to be one that no one would want to miss. It's going to be one that you are going to enjoy, especially with our added attraction during the intermission. So once you are there in person, you do not only get the opportunity to see our athletes perform, but you're also going to get an opportunity to see non-athletes participating in an aspect of
Yeah.
Intercol. On the third day, we also have, apart from what we have on the first and second day with the match pass, we will have a combination of schools, 6 schools coming together to do a dance. And then we have 2 of our young soca artists, Calypsonians from Carriacou, the Sister Isle Carriacou, that will be performing in the intermission. So no one who can be there in person should miss this opportunity to come to the stadium. However, we want everyone who is going to be attending to be at the best behavior, and that includes not just our students but also adults, because we want people to be responsible, to understand that it's a school day, as Mr. Jeremiah indicated. It's a school day. It's just a day of competition at the stadium, education at the stadium on that day. And it's a school event, and we have to observe the rules that would govern school activities. So we're asking our patrons and our students to please comply, ensure that they do not walk with any unauthorized um, objects, any unauthorized materials in the stadium. A reminder that large backpacks will not be allowed at the stadium. They would not be allowed to enter in the games with their backpacks. So leave those at home, and leave home anything that is not needed for viewing Intercol. Thank you very much, Michael and Rudian. Thank you for having us on this morning, this afternoon's episode, this morning for you, this
Yes.
afternoon's episode of TalkSports.
Yeah,
And
thank
we
you.
look forward to any other future engagements where we can come and share a little bit more about our Intercol 2024, Republic Bank Intercol 2024.
Yes,
Thank you.
Sammy, you have something to add to Mrs. Jeffrey? Samantha? Oh, I think
No, yes, I was
Yes.
just to wrap up. She was speaking, and my mind was there on day 3. A last fun fact for you. This last year, we saw record numbers on day 2. So if you think you're getting into day 2 after 12 o'clock, jokes you making, get to stadium early on all 3 days.
Brilliant.
It was very correct. Get there early.
Right. Thank you very much, ladies. I know you're heading back to the Kirani James Athletic Stadium. Just to let folks know that come next Saturday, God's willing, we'll have the officials from the Carifta Games. They will be on to talk to us, and certainly we will look at putting in some information once again for the Intercol 2024, because that will be the weekend before, and we want to encourage them. One person was just telling us, Rudy, and that they're saying that my wife went to SAS. The 2 school ties are in the middle of the bed at this time, lines drawn. You know? So I can understand. All right. So, thank you very, very much, ladies. It was a pleasure having you. Okay, then.
You're most welcome.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys.
All right.
And thanks for the information.
Yes.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, Rudy, and so certainly it was a pleasure having these ladies here with us, and no doubt they provided lots and lots of information.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean, wow.
The security was certainly a big challenge over the years. Many people have spoke about that.
But I love how how they brought us into the match pass. Eh?
I know.
I think based on what they explained, I think it's
it makes more sense. I get that. I thought it was something that you're taking away. It's going to be a period of time where some athletes have to be, it's West up. So I really truly like the explanation, and it makes sense now. It makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and in addition to that, not the athletes that are, it's not taking away anything from the athletes, and in a way, and we have seen the interest shown in that, right? So if you can, well, let me just put something there. It's similar to what we can call the marching bands. They have the marching bands in the Bahamas.
The marching bands.
Normally you have that. We don't see it sometimes we don't see it on television per se, except you have the feed that will give you that. But it's part of the whole process. So yes, and once it can be managed, I think it can fit into the program itself, the schedule. It's part of the entertainment.
It's part of the entertainment,
yeah. It's part of getting the interest of the public, right, in it. Yes, it's track and field, blah, blah, blah. Initially, I was kind of confused about it, but I think the explanation they gave, I think
it makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and things like that. So, right. So we look forward to Intercol. And by the way, I thought about it. I look at the stadium, I look at the photos, I look at the videos. I started looking at the national championships. And what I'm telling you there, in terms of the performances of our athletes, if they can replicate that on Intercol, I'm telling you,
it'll be a good games.
As it is now, we only bragging about my school will win, my school will this, that. But it's open, eh? It's an open field.
Yeah, it's an open field.
Any school can win Intercol.
Based on what I see from some of the sports, it certainly is an open. Yeah, that's some good.
Some schools will have an advantage because of numbers.
Yeah.
We know that.
Yeah.
They have. Jamaica will always dominate junior track and field because of numbers, right?
Yeah.
Because of numbers. They have the numbers.
Yeah.
They will come to Grenada and probably outnumber Grenada in terms of athletes participating in events. Right? That's how they do. So some schools have the advantage over other schools because you have athletes in every event competing, right? So they may be able to get points depending on the event, right?
On the event, yeah.
So some schools will have that advantage. But when you look at the competitiveness of our athletes, do not underestimate some of the new schools. Do not underestimate, the schools in Carriacou, for example.
In Carriacou, yeah, we'll talk about that in the past.
They have been dominating some of the events. You know, I have been looking at javelin there. It was the javelin. And, you know, these guys were leading, and the guy from Carriacou came and his first throw, he moved up to second position. I hope probably, sure, I didn't see the final of that event. But he was just waiting. And then when he actually made his throw, he was in the second position. And all the guys were battling first and second, you know.
Yeah.
Competitiveness, yes. I think Intercol should be a big thing. And once again, for the folks in Grenada, I think you should certainly go out and support the schools. Support your favorite athlete, your favorite school, or the athletes in general. And it's a to Carriacou Games. So if you don't have the tickets for Carriacou Games, you should. And for those of you in the diaspora, there is the pay-per-view. The links are out, and you can start purchasing your pay-per-view by new. Even though you may not be available to watch it live, I think there's an arrangement where you have on demand, so you can buy it. And I think it's something they had an issue last year, but I think it has been sorted out now. I can also get it clarified. But you can buy it.
Because I got to do the same thing too, because I'm heading out to the Canadian Indoor Championships with some of my athletes. So
Thank you, Richie Olivier. But just let me know if the folks who may not be able to watch it live and want to purchase it and watch it on demand, if that is still an option available for them. Because, you know, that as for me, for example, the time difference, I'll be here in Phoenix, and the time difference will be, I think it's 3 or 4 hours, because, you know, the time spring forward and mountain time does not. Mountain time stays, so it's now 3 hours. So I think I'll probably
give or take, 3 hours
difference. So I want to know if I'm not available to look at it live, whether once I pay for it, watch it. Give us some clarity, because I'm not sure if I'll be. No, I wouldn't be in Grenada for that. Not for that one, you know. But I'm waiting for Richie to give us some clarity on that. But Intercol 2024 definitely on. From all that we're hearing, okay, links will be generated after each day. Okay. All right. So the links will be generated after each day. So it's a possibility, right? And then they also have and as I say, if you look at the national championships, and the quality, the production itself is an indication of what you will get at Intercol. And I mean, give it. Last year we had no problem with the quality. We may question the commentary. But when it comes to the quality of the broadcast,
which is good.
Yeah, I think they're pretty on mark with it. We can compare that to any other, broadcasts that we've seen. In fact, I am projecting it on a big screen here, the national championships. I'm projecting it on a big screen, right? And the quality to me, even with the projection,
pretty good.
It's there. So Udian, thank you very much. And as always,
No,
as
it's
I
always
said,
a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. Yeah.
the folks from the Character Games
Next week.
indicated that they want to be on the program come next week. This is the 9th of March. And that's why, as a matter of fact, the folks from that we spoke to today, the Intercol, really should have been on next week.
Next week.
They agreed to come to this week so that they can accommodate the folks from
Accommodated. Yeah. The character game. Yeah.
Yes, so next week we'll
And
have the folks.
certainly, and we certainly will try and get them even after the character games, after the national sports. So after Intercall, I mean that we could literally have a conversation. They could say it was successful or anything like that moving forward, and so certainly we can do that.
I agree with that. Yeah, so we can do that as well. Yeah. Thank you very much, folks. Once again, thank you,
man.
William.
Have a good one. All right.
Yeah. Okay then. So, folks, thank you very much for being part of our program today and this weekend. We look forward to having you come next week, God's willing. As I indicated, it was a very interesting week for sports in general. By the way, we have the World Indo Championships ongoing. We don't have any Grenadians per se participating, but we have a number of Caribbean athletes. Someone was telling me that they believe this is the year for our girl in St. Lucia. That certainly it seems as if she is, she's looking good, I would say, and it appears that, Julian Alfred will win the 60 meters, a lot of action going on. If you have the time, if you're in Grenada and you can get onto the Kirani James Athletic Stadium, please do. If not, there's an online link. You can look at it. There's football. By the way, there's GFA Premier League football. The final round is this weekend. Congratulations to Awesome Paradise on winning the Premier League. I will want to say congratulations to my home team. That's Queen's Park Rangers. Whatever it is, they will finish second. And mind you, 98% of the Queen's Park Rangers team are guys under the age of 20. To me, that's the future of football, right? 98%, I'm telling you, of the current Queen's Park Rangers team are guys under 20. It's a very youthful team. And they're finishing second in the GFA Premier League. Great work, Queen's Park Rangers. Thank you very much once again, folks. Looking forward to your company come next Saturday, God's willing. As I indicated, we'll have the officials from the Character Games local organizing committee in Grenada to speak to us on preparations for the Character Games in Grenada come the end of March into April. Until then, do have yourself a pleasant day.